Join the Wide Whale team May 9th at 3 p.m. Eastern for part 1 of our 3-part virtual event series, Voice of the Resident, where we will look at the tour and move-in lifecycle stages. We've built a data set of 400,000 Google reviews from residents of hundreds of top multifamily groups, including the NMHC Top 50. Using AI and topic sentiment analysis, get a unique perspective on resident preferences. Go to widewhale.com/data to sign up or find it on the revised community. That's widewhale.com/data.
Hello, welcome to the Rooms with Ronald podcast, brought to you by the Multifamily Media Network. I'm your host, Ronald Harrington. In 2023, I set an intention to shop 100 apartment communities to see how leasing was evolving around the country. Rooms with Ronald was born out of that experience. In this series, I share my experiences and engage in meaningful conversations with other professionals in the industry as we discuss all things related to leasing and marketing. Join in as we expand the Rooms with Ronald experiment. Welcome to another exciting episode of Rooms with Ronald. I am your host, Ronald Harrington, and in this podcast, we talk everything leasing and marketing. I have a very special guest with me, a dear friend, an IREM 30 under 30, a National Apartment Association 20 in their 20s, and a 3-time national finalist for Emerging Leader of the Year, Vanessa Grayson, who is a community manager in Kansas City with Avanti Residential. Vanessa, thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolutely. Thank you for thinking of me. And like you said, a dear friend. I'm so grateful for our connection and so happy to support you in your new journey with Rooms with Ronald.
I mean, it's a little bittersweet, right? Because you and I both are finalists for Emerging Leader of the Year. So we're both rooting for each other as well. But the good news is neither one of us can lose because we are all in this together.
100%. I think it's kind of been the nature of the journey, being up there 3 times. And of course, I would love to have it 3 times the charm, right? But also, it's just the fact that I get to be on these platforms with individuals like yourself, who are so passionate about what we do, so committed and so dedicated to growing the next generation. So no matter what happens, I'm really excited to see you in Philly.
Yay, me too. This is going to be great. So I know I was in Kansas City not too long ago. Well, almost a month ago now. It feels like forever ago. And you and I had some great conversation while we were having Starbucks, just about leasing. So can you kind of tell me, what do you see in Kansas City? Like, you've spent your whole career in the Kansas City market. So what are you seeing now, and how has that changed since you got into the industry?
Absolutely. So I'm going on 10 years, and which is crazy to say out loud. But I am going on 10 years in this industry and actually started as a leasing consultant in the very same submarket that I'm now a manager in right now. So to be able to kind of see the changes that we've experienced has been a little bit insane, because I was absolutely around for the paper guest card. But I'm also around for like very high technology driven leasing as well. So there has been a lot of evolving in terms of the processes that we use. But if we're talking about marketing conditions, my goodness, it's changed drastically. And even from the time that I actually became inundated with it, being a community manager myself, it's changed so much. So, and that's only 7 of the 9 years that I've been in the industry. So we're seeing at what point we saw a lot of over saturation, a lot of new builds coming online and having to keep up with new product consistently, which then led to renovations, because those older communities are now trying to keep up with everything that's coming online at that point. So ultimately, what that has done for the Kansas City market is drive concessions, because you're doing everything that you can to get those leases in and there's been a high focal point for retention as well, because that's equally as important. If they don't go anywhere, you don't have to give away those concessions. But you are in a market, like my current submarket in particular is about to experience 600 more homes come online, all within like a 1 mile radius of where we currently are, and all at the same time. So it's absolutely insane for the Kansas City market right now. But we got a new airport and we're reigning Super Bowl champs, and we just got our women's soccer team here and the very first stadium built for them. So there's a lot of things that are happening, which is kind of just producing for Kansas City overall, from an operational standpoint, both with businesses, but then those businesses bringing new housing online for us.
Yeah, I mean, hey, 600 homes in a mile radius is a lot, especially in a market that would you say has, you said it was oversaturated. Has it recovered from the oversaturation to the point where they're ready to absorb 600 new units? Or is there some fear that, we're going to have to give more concessions to compete with these new homes?
Absolutely. I think at one point we recovered, but I also think it depends on what submarket you're in within the Kansas City area. So we have subs that are like very strictly downtown. I'm on the outskirts of downtown in the crossroads, so that's kind of a thing itself. You have the Kansas City Northland. You have out south, which is right across the border, and like our Johnson County area. So it truly depends on the sub, because each sub has a focal point and the type of build that it is. So, of course, downtown you get high rise, luxury, Class A sites. If you go like up north, you have like a very heavy mixture of like Class A, Class B, and even Class C property. So it's really going to depend on your geographical location. I would say for like this downtown, kind of outskirts of downtown, as much as I want to say that we have recovered, there's just more and more coming online. So you recover, it's kind of like you come up to catch your breath from the water and then you're right back in it, because here we are, back to giving concessions. Of course, it's not something that you want to do, but to keep up, sometimes it's something that you have to do to make it happen for your community.
And I know when we were talking how much you hate offering concessions, like it's not, you are like, you would much rather like do anything else but offer a concession. And we had a nice conversation about teaching our leasing staff to rent apartments without offering those concessions. And it seemed to be working well with you at that time. So, like, what were your tips and tricks to your team to get them bought in? Because as a leasing agent, right, if you say I can have a concession, I'm going to take it because that's going to help my bottom dollar. Like, I'm going to get that lease, which then is going to help my commission check. So, what did you do with your team to help them overcome that?
For sure. I think it's that word that you just used. It's a mentality. Like, how are you walking into the situation? Are you solely focused on your commission, or are you focused on making sure you can check every box possible for them? And then in turn, your commission will come. So, something that's really important for how I teach, especially people that are just coming into the industry, is that your concession is a tool, but it should be the last tool in your toolbox. And the only reason I say that is because if you've taken the time to tailor your leasing experience to the needs that they're bringing to the table for you, a lot of times the concession is just like, oh, and by the way, like the home that you love actually does have a concession on it. And it should be one of the last things that we're talking about in the conversation. It's just that bonus piece. And that is what will really seal the deal. But my team was super successful, in the month of February, and in February they actually leased with no move-in concessions, solely by just making sure that we're taking the opportunity to listen, and showing homes that check all the boxes, whether it has a concession or not. Because 9 times out of 10, if you've really honed in on that engagement piece and that rapport building, they trust that the home that you have shown them is so perfect. They're really not worried about it. And then in our submarket in particular, we have a demographic with, technology at their fingertips. They've probably already gone to your website. They're probably comfortable with the price point. They know I mean, we have 30 different layouts and we have prospects come in all the time and they're like, I want to see this one, this one, this one. Like they know exactly what they're looking for. And then to pair that with our rent revenue management systems, to be able to say like down to the date, like if this is the day that you're moving in with the lease term that you're asking for, like this price is going to be perfect for you because it fits what you're looking for. So we aren't we don't lead with concessions. Concessions are a tool, but it's the last tool we're grabbing in the toolbox.
Which, is great to hear because a lot of people will lead with that concession. They start talking about price, they start, but it has a special, or they want to go straight to the cheapest, which I always say
Hmm.
the cheapest isn't always necessarily the best value. So tailoring that experience. And you had like a fairly green team, right? So like which is a double-edged sword, right? They didn't have a lot of bad habits to break, right? From previous life cycles where they would go in and like, well, my last company, we always led with the concession. But it's also like on the flip side of that, you have to teach them everything from the ground up. So as a manager, how did you kind of work both of those at the same time?
Um, I think it's exactly what you said. I have nothing to go off of, which is so like they're bringing their past potential like customer service experience to the table. That's what I leverage. Like this is an experience overall. You're building a relationship, so I need you to leverage all of your customer service skill sets and characteristics to the table before you do anything else. So 9 times out of 10, I can send my green team members like, hey, like let's start learning our layouts and things like that. They'll see the concession on site. But they're shadowing people, like myself or maybe other team members that have learned the same way that I have. So there's not much to go off of, which is nice because you're giving them that different mindset and mentality up front, versus like correcting bad habits. But you want them to know that it's there. It's not like the untouchable. It's not that we can't talk about it. And absolutely, prospects do come to the table like, hey, I noticed like this is what's on your website banner right now. Can you help me identify the homes that work? But there's different ways to also pivot that conversation. Like, I would love to find out if that home works for you. Like, let's talk about what you're looking for so I can make sure that's the absolute best fit for you. So it's all about how you navigate that conversation and tailor the experience to them. But with my green team members, and I just welcomed a new one to my team, like it's by far the most favorite thing for me to teach them everything I've learned in the leasing realm. But that I hate concessions. Like, please don't do it. But in the same breath, as a manager, I absolutely understand the business aspect of it. So if it comes down to a concession or the vacancy loss, like we're gonna get the occupancy. Go ahead, take the concession. But it's one step closer to not having to offer concessions at all. So we'll get there either way.
Yeah. So how would you just said you welcomed a new team member who's green. So how would you go in and maybe who's someone who isn't green, right? You're a seasoned
Mhm.
manager, you hire someone who, they've leased by concessions, they've leased, that's just what they're used to. So how do you go in and help them switch that mentality to say that the concession is just a bonus, right?
Mhm.
What other tools would you give to them to make sure that they were set up for success?
I think something that we don't do enough of, and I feel like we've shied away from, is going back to shop our comps. Quite honestly. And I know that's a big component of the projects that you're working on right now, but being able to, I think it's one thing to relay the information to them. I think it's another for them to be able to see it in action and see how it feels from the other perspective. Like if my leasing consultant were helping me find a home and all they wanted to do was shove a concession down my throat, like what did I really gain outside of some potential like a month free rent. Like, how did you create an experience for me? How comfortable do I feel with you right now? Do I feel like you had my best interest at heart and you were actually listening to the things that I was asking for versus just saying like, I need you in this home because this home has a special and I know nothing about you, but free rent is free rent and that's it. So I think it's so important for our teams to be able to see these things in action, understand how it feels from, your future residents' perspective. From, it's a sales pitch essentially what we're doing. We're selling ourselves, but would you be comfortable just taking free money and now you're locked into this 13, 14 month lease potentially? You got a month free, but your experience has been awful. You never had a trusted advisor to begin with. So I really hone in on making sure that they're able to shadow, whether that's at our comps or on our site within our company, as well as from both perspectives, so they can start to kind of garner that mentality switch.
I like when someone starts saying concession to me before they even get to know me, I instantly go into this like, what is wrong with A, your community that this is how
Mhm.
you're leading, and B, like this home, like why, what's the negative? Which is so funny from someone like me because like I pride myself in being like positive P. Like I will find a silver lining in anything. So it's like as soon as they start saying special and like I'm like, but you don't know if that meets my needs. What is wrong with this home? So I
Yeah.
totally understand that.
Yeah, it creates the thought process, like you said, that something's wrong, and then immediately my team members are. I don't want to use the term defensive, but you're automatically having to overcome the objectives before we any ever talked about anything like positive and exciting and what how we connect with them overall. So it's 100% that. And then when it comes down to like, okay, like let's say someone, bites on that and they're like, okay, let's go see the home. I feel like their mindset is automatically like, what can I find wrong?
Mhm.
Versus like, okay, I can put my couch here or everything will fit in my closet. This one has like a really great view or a view that like I wouldn't mind because I also have that amazing courtyard or pool deck downstairs where I don't have a great view here, but I do have a great view down there. And I know that amenity is a part of my community. So it kind of puts us, we've kind of dug ourselves in a hole a little bit that we have to then work to dig ourselves out of. And so leading with those concessions is just, I don't love it. I don't love it. There's a time and a place for sure.
Well, and the sad thing is I don't think most leasing professionals are people in leasing at all, whether that's the assistant manager or the community, anyone who's leasing realizes that they've already dug themselves into a hole. Like
Mhm.
they think they're actually doing a service and people haven't, most prospects aren't going to be like, well, what's wrong with it, right? They're just going to be like, okay, and they're going to go about their way. And it's instantly going to become this like second nature of like, now I have to work twice as hard for that. Right. And so
Mhm.
like one of the things I was like sharing with you is I hate when I go to our property and we're like, they're in this connection building phase and they'll say, well, where else have you looked? I'm okay if you ask me where have I looked already, right? Because I've already
Yes.
done that. The moment you say, where else are you going to go look? It puts this doubt into my mind that you don't have everything I need. You're not confident in your ability in your product that I'm going to have that this is I'm done after you, right? And I think like a lot of people do that as well. And you kind of were like, you said like something like it made me look at it in a different light, right? Because that's what we're
Mhm.
prone to do.
This episode is brought to you by Wide Whale, the reputation partner for BH, Avenue 5, Trilogy, and more. Join Wide Whale on May 9th at 3 p.m. Eastern for event number 1 in our 3-part virtual event series, Voice of the Resident. We will be looking at in-depth topic and sentiment analysis from 400,000 Google reviews from residents of the largest multifamily groups, including the NMHC Top 50. Throughout the series, we will report on resident preferences and trends found in reviews by life cycle stage, retention, residency, and for our first event, tour and move in. You'll leave with insights to optimize your operations, creating better resident experiences and driving better reviews. Put your dollars to work in the right places. Hear it directly from the source, the words of 400,000 residents. Go to widewhale.com/data to sign up or find it on the revised community in virtual events. Attend live or watch on demand. That's widewhale.com/data.
Yeah. I remember this and I took this so to heart. And why have I like completely changed the way that, first of all, the timing that I bring that question up, in terms of like, are you like, have you continued to like, were you searching in this market to begin with? How did we come up? Like, how did you select this location? It gives me a general idea of, I kind of already know what comps they're going to if they're saying like, this is the area that I want to be in. Or, it kind of opens the door for some more open-ended questions if I figure out like, hey, my community was just on a whim. They were actually looking like, we're looking in the Northland and they were like, oh, like this one could work. So it helps generate those open-ended questions. But I kid you not, I have not asked another person where they're going next because it really did just kind of shift my perspective. And I've really changed up the way that I will go and close, which in turn, I've actually a week ago, I backdoor closed 3 of my leasing consultant team's leases, like literally just calling them back, like, hey, I just wanted to check in with you. How did your tour experience go? Not to call them to sell them if they're still looking or anything. Like, I had no intention to do that other than to say, like, I saw that you toured our community. I really just want some feedback from you on how it went. And it led into, just kind of some sub conversations that, them being able to share their feedback with me. But they were very open and honest that they did go other places. And to then kind of have that reassurance that the other places were not doing what we were doing, I'm like, I'm never going to ask that question ever again. Like, it is it is okay. Like, as long as I keep up and make sure that I'm still continuing to shop my comps, learn new information about my market, there is not a single reason why I need to ask a person where they're going next, because they're not. Like, we're going to sit on this couch and we're going to fill out this application together because I've made this such a positive relationship for you. And I think I was telling you about my longest standing leasing consultant. She began green and she's a machine at leasing from this couch, like so much to a point that like, I'm like, I'm going to get this couch like sanitized every week. You always have someone on it. And like, we just need to pay attention to this couch and make sure it's so perfect for you all the time, because I know that you're always going to be there. And that's something that she does so well, is she has a mindset that like, you're not going anywhere after me. And I love that for her. She's a champ at it. So I learned from the both of you in that moment, and it has produced quite a bit of success for my team.
When they tell me they're going somewhere else, I'm like, okay, you'll be back. What time should I make you the return visit for? You'll be back. Like, I'm that confident, like, in what I have to offer that's meeting your needs. And they come back and they're like, how did you know I would be back? And I'm like, because I know the comps. I know the experience you're getting as soon as you walk out this door.
For sure.
And I'm
And
like, and this is probably what happened. And I'll walk them through. Like, I was like, so you probably went to a different apartment community. You might have been greeted with a smile. Probably not. They probably didn't stand up. Their desk was a mess. They just listed everything that they had, and you just couldn't stop thinking about me, could you? And they're like, that is exactly the experience. And I'm like, right. But here we are. So now that you know that I'm going to take care of you and my team is going to take care of you, let's just start the application.
100%. But it's not even the experience that they're going to have when they walk out the door. I think it kind of goes back to that mentality shift. Like, if you are so hyper fixated on the experience that they're going to have before they even hit your door handle at the beginning of your tour, that is, I feel like, where we win. My team does an amazing job of just roping different components in that you would never even think of. We could have 15 tours a week, and I've probably met 50% of them, is because my leasing professional is so amazing about, if she encounters me, she stops everything she's doing. She's like, hey, this is our community manager. Like, this is when she started. Here's some projects that, we have going on in the works for the community. She ropes me in. She does it for every single maintenance team member that she encounters as well. It's not any type of awkward, like, hey, while we're here, like, this is Nick would be the one like entering your homes for our service requests and things like that. So we have truly cultivated a full-on experience at our community. And my goodness, you can go look up my site. And even if they did not lease with us for whatever the reason, she has so many reviews that just solely highlight the tour experience. Like, this was the best place and the best experience, the best service that I had my entire time visiting Kansas City or while I was shopping for new homes. And they're so happy to list, like, I didn't lease, but I felt comfortable enough to still give this feedback. Because if it weren't for this, and a lot of times it is things that are completely out of my control. We've had people like have job offers and they got pulled back and things like that. But my goodness, this girl is like just leveraging all of these reviews, and she uses them during her tour. Like, hey, I know you probably have read our online reviews. Online reputation so important. This is how it was. Here's where you can start to see the shift from our new team members coming in place. Like, she hits it all, and I'm just like, it's hard for me to believe that she's only been doing this for a couple months. But man, it's really all about just a shift in mindset, knowing what's out there, knowing how to leverage that. And my goodness, if I could give one piece of advice for any leasing consultant just starting out, or even our ones that are well seasoned, please take a moment to self-reflect on the experience that you're giving to your prospects. And it's so hard, or it's so easy, honestly, to get complacent in the experience that you're building. If you just take a moment to pause and to listen to what they're asking for, and make sure that what you're giving back to them is fulfilling their needs. Like, you've got to take your commission check out of it. You've got to take anything that has to do with yourself, you've got to take that out the equation. Just listen, and everything else will fall into place.
I could not agree more. And I told you, like, my philosophy on commission is this: I hate when the commission is a flat rate for every apartment, right? I don't think it should be a flat rate, because this is when leasing professionals start to, give them the cheapest, give them, the consent, right? And we're not listening. Why wouldn't we as an industry do a standard like you get 1% of the lease value, which means I'm going to want higher rents, which is a win-win for everybody, right? Because the higher the rent, the more money in my pocket.
Mhm.
Then when I say the lease value is because now I'm going to subtract that concession that you said you had to have. So guess what? Now that's hitting your dollar. Now it's
Mhm.
like hitting your paycheck in your pocket. So now all of a sudden you'll see this shift in leasing professionals who are like, how long of a lease do you want? How much are you like, let me identify those needs. And I don't need this special because guess what? I'm confident in my abilities. And I know at the end of the day, that's going to hurt me. And it might only be $20 or $30. But if you take $20 or $30 over 10 leases in a month, that's $200 to $300 that instantly now they're filling it, right? Before, they didn't have to be bought into concessions or no concessions when it's a flat rate. If it's $100 per lease, whether I lease it with 2 to 3 months free or no,
Mhm.
like no effect to me, right? I'm still getting that $100. So putting it into that, like making it a sales focus versus just an occupancy focus, I
Right.
think kind of helps with that shift in that mindset.
Yeah, 100%. I think I've seen it both ways, and it's kind of something that you and I talked about. Like, I've seen it be a percentage of the lease term in its entirety, and I've also seen it be a flat rate. I think if you're going to do a flat rate, it's so, so, so important that you're training your leasing professionals to understand, the average in place rent, how that affects the business operations. And so if you're going to do a flat rate, it's fine. it works for some companies and for some companies it doesn't. But with that comes a new level of education that you have to be teaching your leasing consultants. Not that they shouldn't already understand KPIs and KPIs that are important to their role, but also understand the KPIs that leasing affects, whether it's a positive leasing experience or a negative leasing experience, and how it just kind of affects the operations overall and how it affects the maintenance team, because it's all a domino effect. It comes with a new level of education. And if we're not willing to take accountability to make sure that we are educating our team members on those things and how they can be helpful for that, it's going to be a bit of a long road, to be quite honest with you. So it really is tools, resources, education, making sure that they have every component possible to make it successful. But um, again, I've seen it work both ways, but I 100% agree with what you're saying. It is very easy to pull someone out of that mindset if they understand, like, what's in it for me? How does it affect me? And a lot of times we're just not having those conversations.
Right. I think I was very fortunate early on, and like my very first property manager made sure that everyone on staff understood, the financials and what we would have like cap rate discussions, and like it was like
Mhm.
math, like whiteboards and everything. And like if we increased rent by this much this month, and like I could see how much that added to the value, which I think is like, I feel very fortunate as someone because my first manager did do that training aspect of it with us. And I feel like right now as an industry, we've kind of pulled back a little bit on the training side of things, and like just giving people the keys to a multi-million dollar asset, and what kind of like, good luck.
Yeah.
Hope you have the people to do it. And it's so funny that when you talk about experiences, I got a text earlier this week from someone that said, I just went and did some apartment shopping and it was awful. As an industry, we have so much work to do. Selfishly, it made me feel so good because I thought maybe when I was doing my experiment last year that I was just super hard on people. So to have that feedback come back like from someone else, I was just like, okay, so it's not just me, it is kind of all over.
It really is. And it's noticeable to people outside of the industry as well. So my newest leasing consultant, actually, she's green, but when she was moving, she said I shopped about like 20 to 25 places.
Poor
And
girl.
she's like, she could tell me, like, I immediately was just like, I like this, I don't like this, I hated this one. Like, she could rattle off how things made her feel, things that she noticed. And it is down to the smallest of details. What is something that's really happening a lot right now, I don't know if it's happening all over, but like in our market in particular, is having appointments set, or we've kind of become hands free with our appointment setting. My team does it because absolutely not. We are not
Right.
automating or robot responses. They know that I cannot stand that. If someone puts in a tour request online, you're reaching out to them, you're
Yep.
getting their details ahead of time, and you're acting like they're the ones who called the site, and you're still having that same conversation. But you'd be surprised how many appointments get set and then you get to the leasing office and no one's there. I am just like so shocked that that is still happening. Like, what are you guys doing? Where are you at?
I am not. It happens everywhere. And one of the things like that when I'm working with sites that I look at, so like a lot of companies focus solely on the closing ratio. But I'm looking at the conversion ratio of, prospect to tour. I look at like the number of scheduled visits to the number of tours actually entered. And I'm looking at the number and I'm looking at the percentage and I'm like, okay, 75 to 80% is actually really great. When it gets below that, I'm like, a couple things aren't happening. We aren't entering our traffic correctly, which is a red flag to me, or we haven't put that human touch. Like we let them make the appointment and then we haven't reached out to get to know them or anything like that. So they're like, well, I'm not going to show up. Clearly, they don't care about me. So I love that you make your teams call and like do that information finding before they even get here.
100%. Because if I were to just let them go, they're showing up to the tour blind. We're walking into the tour blind.
Yep.
We have no way to like fully prepare. And that's all encompassing of all of our team members, right? If, let's say, an appointment was scheduled and, you know, we don't know that we need to go into, it's got a light out. Like, you could have alerted your team well ahead of time, like, hey, I really want to show 2205 today. I noticed it has a light out. Do you mind taking care of that? My team is amazing because my office team would go and take care of it themselves. And I
Yes.
just I adore that for them. Like, they're incredible. This is absolutely one of the best teams that I've ever had an opportunity to work with and to work for. So, but it's all encompassing, because then, you know, if, let's say, a prospect does walk into that home and the lights out, like, what do they think about my maintenance team now? That they just like
Mhm.
sit on their hands and don't do anything? Like, it's so easy to really shine a light on every single team member and the role that they play and the impact that they're going to make on that future resident during the tour process, that we don't have robots when you live here. So I'm not going to ever let you believe that our responses will be canned or automated. Even from the very beginning, there's just no reason for it.
Yeah, I love that. Well, Vanessa, this conversation has been so great and we could go on for hours, but I know that you have a full-time job to do. But I have to ask you one last question because a little birdie told me some information and I just need to know the deets about it. I hear you have a big announcement.
I do. So, a few months ago, I accepted an opportunity to partner with Multifamily Media Network and join their network as a podcast host. So, I will be launching the Unconventional Project as my very own podcast. And I am so excited because I think this has just been weighing on my heart for such a long time. And it's usually just my friends and my team members that are recipients of my motivational speaking and all my leaderships that come to mind, and my really just unique mindset. I know that I do things a little bit differently quite often. And so I'm ready to just kind of share that and what my journey's been like over the course of almost 10 years, because a lot of growth has happened. But it's just really important for me to like get that off my chest as we look to grow the next generation. It's crazy that I'm not the incoming generation anymore. But I
That
think
means you're
there's a
getting
lot.
old.
You know, yes, I feel it. Sometimes I look it, but I definitely feel it. But no, I'm so excited to join you and the rest of the podcast hosts on that platform, and super excited that Jennifer and Mike gave me the opportunity. So I can't wait to get going.
We are so excited to welcome you into this multifamily media network family. I can't wait to see what you're going to do with the Unconventional Project. I was an early subscriber to the newsletter when you started as a newsletter. So I'm so excited for everyone else to finally get to hear what you have to say.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled, and it won't be just me. We'll spend a lot of opportunity working with individuals that may not get these opportunities to speak on podcasts often, but they have a brain full of wisdom and knowledge and so many amazing things to share, that it's so important to me that just the same way that a lot of people within the NAA and my local association as well have opened doors for me, I think stories need to be heard. Operations and policy and procedure, like, we have real life happening outside of this, and some of those things are very transferable into what we do in our industry as well. So I can't wait to put spotlights on people that deserve them and that we haven't heard from. My biggest thing is just making sure that, you know, through these unique experiences and just life adversity overall, that everyone has an opportunity to share that the same way that I have. So I'll be unpacking you know, in detail a little more of my story as well that I've yet to bring to the table. But the key thing here is just opportunity and vulnerability, and just making sure that we have real, raw, authentic, and genuine conversations about what we have going on here.
Perfect. Well, we can't wait. Vanessa, thank you so much for joining. And to everyone out there listening, thanks for joining in to another episode of Rooms with Ronald. Until next time, happy leasing.
Thank you for tuning in today. I hope I left you with some fresh ideas or a new perspective. Leasing and marketing are evolving rapidly.
And Rooms with Ronald is committed to offering a place to hear about those changes. We also celebrate and acknowledge the fundamentals of exceptional service that will never go out of style. So, if you enjoyed this episode, please like, comment, or subscribe. Visit multifamilymedianetwork.com to learn more about our other exceptional industry podcasts, thought pieces, and sponsorship opportunities.